going on, guys? This is Apex Formers here. I'm gonna do AMD versus Intel for the gaming and video rendering and mainly everything else, but mostly gaming and video rendering over some mediocre crew gameplay. So AMD is the best money for your dollar. Your AMD FX 9570 or 9370, like $220. You get 8 cores at 5 gigahertz. That's pretty beast. I use an AMD FX 8350 overclocked to 4.5, 4.6. That's what I'm going to overclock my AMD to. Now Intel, the Intel processor that you can get for $220, you can get an i7 4770K at Micro Center for the same price, and they're pretty much exactly the same processor. They can do exactly the same amount of gaming. You won't lose any frames per second in games. Maybe you won't lose any frames per second besides your errors, as in there's just chronological errors between your games. So if you take another test and get 58 frames per second, get into a test and get 58.5 frames per second, that's just an error. It's not, you're actually not losing any frames per second. Now with video rendering, Intel is beast with video rendering. You can render 37 with a 4770K. You can render a video that's 10 minutes long at about 150% real time. 150% real time. So you're rendering it at, say, 9 minutes, 8 minutes, which is amazing. AMD, however, isn't good at video rendering because their architecture isn't that great. Now, with the GPUs, like the APUs and GPUs inside the AMD and Intel, the only AMD APUs are the A series, the A5, I think it's the A6, A8s, the A10s. The A10 7850K is the best APU you'll ever see. Well, for now, that's an awesome APU. Now for the Intel, you have 4770K as the HD graphics. It's 45,000, like 4,500. That's good for daily tasking, but you won't be gaming on that unless it's like an older game. I think the APU side gives it to AMD. So price, AMD. Video rendering, Intel. Gaming, it's pretty much a tie between the Intel 4770K and then the AMD FX 9370. Now, for the architecture, I'm giving it to Intel. Intel has a great architecture. The best architecture I've ever seen. You can push those chips far. As in, you can probably overclock at 4770K. Everybody probably can about 4.5 to 4.6 gigahertz, which is amazing. AMD, you can't push the 9370 that far. It's already at 5 gigahertz. Turbo Boost is already 5 gigahertz. You might be able to get 5.1, 5.2 gigahertz out of it, but I wouldn't do it. Intel gets the overclocking capability when it comes to the 9370. FX 8350, however, that's a different story. But I'm just talking about the 9370 versus the 4770K. Overclocking will go to Intel. So we have AMD, Intel at a tie right now. Yeah, at a tie. Now, when you go towards like high frame rate games or a lot of PCIe lanes, PCI 3.0, Intel. So Intel is in the lead. I would go, so my final opinion, I would go with Intel. Switch my AMD rig and go with Intel. Not because I'm an Intel fanboy, because it's the best that gets your money. You might be paying $50 more for your Intel processor,